Hi everybody, welcome back to Classic Spin. Today I've got another installment in the Council of Nicaea series. Today we've got, I think, part 6, and we're starting with Canon 5 of the canons that were laid out at the Council of Nicaea. Thanks for tuning in. I'll get right to it. Canon 5 laid down that cases of excommunication should be reviewed by provincial synods held twice every year. One should be held in Lent, that they might enjoy an Easter communion unspoiled by ill will. Canon 6 begins with a principle: let the ancient customs prevail. The Bishop of Alexandria had jurisdiction throughout Egypt, Libya, and Pentapolis, including 5 provinces, of which he was sole metropolitan. The reason given in support of this authority is, since this is also customary for the bishop in Rome, but they do not state what the Roman sphere was. Later Latin versions made the canon begin with the words, "The Roman Church has always had the primacy." The Roman legate at Chalcedon, Pasganius, when he quoted this, was at once confronted with the Greek original, to his dismay, for he could not read Greek. The clause was officially withdrawn, for it did not appear in the ecclesiastical canons of Dionysius Exiguus in AD 520. The Roman sphere appears to mean the provinces of central and southern Italy, with the islands of Corsica, Sardinia, and Sicily. It is clear, as Bright says, that the First Ecumenical Council knew nothing of the doctrine of papal supremacy. In any case, the claim to primacy, primatus, meant patriarchal authority, such as the Alexandrian See had in Egypt. It was decreed that Antioch should rank as the third see, and in Canon 7, an honorary precedence was given in Palestine to the See of Aelia, i.e. Jerusalem, reserving to the metropolis Caesarea its proper dignity. Other canons, 8, 11 through 14, and 19, deal with difficulties caused by schism and heresy. Duquesne says that there were novatianists to be met with, more or less, throughout Asia Minor, and the terms offered were conciliatory, as regards the admission of the laity to communion. But novatianist clerics coming over to the church must be reordained, and give a written promise that they will communicate with the twice married and with the repentant lapsed. A novatianist bishop, as was the case with Meletius, was allowed his title without jurisdiction, out of regard to the principle that there may not be 2 bishops in one city. The followers of Paul of Samosata should be rebaptized and the clergy reordained. As Kidd says, the council required right faith as well as right form and matter for the validity of the sacraments. Provision was made for those who had lapsed under the tyranny of Licinius, and penances were prescribed. The lapsed are to stand among the hearers for 2 years, they are to be kneelers for 7 years, and then for 2 years take part, the technical term is co-standers, with the people in the prayers of the Eucharist, but apart from oblation, i.e. without communion. Canon 15 forbade the translation of bishops from one see to another, but apparently allowed previous translations, as of Eustathius to Antioch, and of Eusebius to Nicomedia, nor was the canon regarded when he was translated again to Constantinople. Finally, Canon 20 decrees standing at the Eucharist from Easter to Whitsuntide. The custom that a priest should stand for his own communion is a relic of this. It is strange that this practice should have been dropped, but the decisions of councils on faith have been regarded as more binding than those on discipline. We must note that one rule which was proposed was not passed by the council, that persons in holy orders should not be allowed to live as married men. It was opposed by the revered monk Paphnutius, who upheld the ancient tradition, which forbade men already ordained to marry. The yet larger liberty which our church... Hi guys, this is Classic Ben, I'm jumping in again. You can probably tell the Anglican bias here, but when he says our church and things like this, he's speaking from an Anglican perspective. So anyway, I'm going back into his voice in 3, 2, 1. Our church adopted is based on the experience of centuries. As Canon Lacey says, the ordinance of God is justified by experience, alike in the order of nature and in the order of grace. England would be indeed impoverished without the clerical homes in which the influence of a good wife and mother radiates through a parish and doubles the influence of her husband. Duquesne writes, such is the ecclesiastical legislation of Nicaea, legislation without synthetic character, entirely determined by circumstances, as is always the case with the legislation of the councils. It represented certainly not the general regulation of ecclesiastical relations, but simply the solution of a certain number of cases, to which the attention of the assembled members happened to have been called. Up to that time, the church had existed either upon unwritten traditions, or upon collections of rules, claiming the authority of the apostles or their disciples, but without any title which could be verified. The councils of Elvira and of Arles were never acknowledged in the East. Those of Ancyra and Neo-Caesarea waited a long time before they were recognized in the West. The canons of Nicaea were accepted everywhere from the first, and were everywhere placed at the head of the authentic records of ecclesiastical law. On July 25th, the emperor gave a banquet in honor of his Vicinalia, or 20th anniversary of his ascension. Eusebius gives a vivid account of its magnificence, and comments on the strange feeling with which, as the bishops passed the guards of the palace, on the way to the banqueting hall, they could see the glint of arms, without the fear of former days. He also records, and his kid dryly remarks, "It is comforting to human frailty that all the bishops were present at the dinner, though they had not all been present at the debates." The emperor distributed princely gifts, and on another day exhorted them, in a very practical farewell speech, to mutual forbearance, concord, and unanimity for the common cause. Be like wise physicians who treat different cases with discrimination, and are all things to all. And now farewell, and pray earnestly for me.